Hello and welcome everyone, this is a build guide for Juggernaut Frost Breath Trauma Glacial Hammer that is it became available only with the start of 3.22 League with an addition of trauma support to all the strike skills, and it's quite a busted combination of things with Frost Breath, unique mace that gives you attacks with this weapon deal double damage to shield enemies. We are using Glacial, a hammer that deals cold damage, and we're constantly chilling enemies, and the trauma skill gem, which is not really it doesn't really work still in PoB, but we can get the additional damage that we would get from average number of traumas in PoB, and to calculate it correctly. Basically trauma, it gives you a bunch of flat flat physical damage to your skills, any strike skills that it supports. And with this weapon in particular, this weapon has pretty okay attack speed, but it has very low baseline damage. So all the flat damage that can be applied to Frost Breath basically deals double damage afterwards, and it's broken mechanic. In some ways, at least it's a very efficient mechanic that you can utilize with trauma support. It is very good with all the things like hit shiver that you can work with. It's very good. It gives you a bunch of damage. So as you can see here, it's 7 million DPS against pinnacle bosses. Maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, depending on the amount of trauma stacks that you can sustain. And many other factors, but it's still a very powerful build. It's a pretty cool concept, and it's the most important thing is that it's a Juggernaut and it's hella tanky. As you can see here, effective hit pool is just gigantic. And it's a very comfortable build that doesn't really require you to get many stuff going on. You just need Frost Breath, and you're good to go with trauma and with stacking all that goodies. Basically that's it when it comes to this build. It is a quite popular build currently in the starting points of the Trial of the Ancestors. And before we're delving deep into the build itself, I recommend you to subscribe to the channel, as many more videos like this are going to be coming out on the channel in the next days and weeks. I'm gonna be covering a lot of different builds that are present, popular, and effective. That you can play with, league start with, or continue and build towards. So there's gonna be a bunch of content. Definitely subscribe to the channel and leave a like on this video if you've enjoyed it and if you thought that information was good. Okay, so basically let's go through the talent tree, then skills, and then items. With talent tree, it's a Juggernaut, which means that armor and life is the things that we love. We're getting plus to all maximum resistances, as well as it's an efficient way for you to defend yourself against elemental damage. More life again, so here's some additional endurance charge generation stuff with you hitting yourself with trauma. We're using call to arms for our war cry. We're utilizing one cluster jewel just for you to get some additional damage modifiers, some attack, some accuracy as well, and have additional jewel slockets. Mana reservation efficiency, of course, just as on almost all builds nowadays. Some additional totem buffs increases as we're using Ancestral Protector and stuff, and buffs from Ancestral totems being lingering 3 seconds even after they die. Then we're going for more armor, health, armor and life, then some cold damage. Some cold penetration, and damage ramps up against enemies that you were freezing or chilling. Culling strike against marked enemies. We are using precise technique, and it's quite easy for us to stack enough accuracy to get this bonus. As we're playing Juggernaut, our life pool is not as excessive, so getting enough accuracy rating is going to be more than easy, and you're gonna get this thing here. And so That means that we're not really critical. Yeah, we're not critting. The 40% of attack damage is way less investment and way more power than we can get. And then a little bit of spell suppress chance whenever you can get it, in terms of talent tree, and additional elemental damage increases. So yeah, here we're going for some additional mana reservation efficiency. The mana nodes itself, they're not the priority here. More life, a little bit more skill effect duration, and Mage Bane with additional spell suppression. So everything is plain and simple. We're not using any crazy stuff in here. The thing that additionally being used is Watcher's Eye, but I don't really think that Watcher's Eye is anything crazy nowadays. Additional physical damage reduction while affected by determination, and and additional armor while affected by determination. If you don't have it, you will just have a little bit less armor. We do have 84,000 here. It's more than enough for us to defend ourselves against trauma stacks and against enemies' physical damage, and to gain additional damage reduction against elemental damage as well. Now, when it comes to the main skill, of course, it's Glacial Hammer. We are using, so yeah, basically, if you haven't played strike skills recently, you have Tribal Fury that gives you splash damage to strikes, so you don't really need melee splash anymore, and yeah, no builds use that. And we have non-vile strike skills, target one additional nearby enemy by default, so you're already, even whenever you're just playing through the first acts, you have these talents and you have your AoE clear. That doesn't really hurts your DPS. And then after that, Ancestral Cry that we're using exerts next melee strike attacks. Exerted strikes target two additional enemies. So that's basically an ancestral support gem that was previously used in the main link, and now it's just a cry, and it's more than enough for us to have it on 8 melee strikes. The next 8 melee strike attacks. So yeah, that's how we're getting our AoE. It's very easy, and yeah, it's just very cool that we have all these things. So now for the main supports, Trinity for elemental penetration and more damage, very, very good. Awakened elemental damage with attacks, quite obvious, or just a regular elemental damage with attacks. Ruthless is very good as it gives you additional stuns, and it gives you more damage multiplier. Then Hypothermia, which gives you again more damage, chance to freeze, and chill duration, very good. Trauma does not really display in POB for now, but it just gives you a bunch of flat physical damage, and whenever you hit an enemy with a new attack, you receive physical damage. But we're trying to get our attack speed in the right place so that you can't really get too many trauma stacks, so that you can't kill yourself, quite obviously. And we can get just enormous amounts of flat fizz damage from the gem. So just enough stacks is good, and we can sustain it pretty easily. Then when it comes to the auras, as you can see here, we're reserving percentage of our health. So it's precision with arrogance, precision level 21. It gives us accuracy rating that we need for our precise technique to work. Otherwise, we don't really need critical strike chance. But yeah, precision should be leveled up. It will give you a bunch of stuff, and arrogance makes it that it reserves your life instead of your mana. And because precision is a flat reservation aura, it's quite easy to use it, and you will not lose too much life. Then Ancestral Protector just gives you attack speed, which is hella bonkers and very, very good. Yeah, probably bonkers is an outdated word. Okay, so Ancestral Cry with Rage. So basically, yeah, we're generating Rage, and then we're with Vengeance. Yeah, so Vengeance will auto-proc from you, chance to trigger this skill when hit, and you're getting hit with your trauma stacks. So basically that's how you're gonna constantly proc Rage, and you will get it. So yeah, it's just very easy setup for you to go with. Vengeance itself doesn't really do any damage. It's just a proccing mechanism. Frost Blink for us to blink from the fast boss attacks. Then cast 1 damage taken with Warlord's Mark, Life Tap, and Molten Shell. So Life Tap here is for us not to use for, so everything that procs and that is not really Vengeance, which has it doesn't really have, as you can see here, it hasn't no mana cost. Warlord's Mark and Molten Shell have mana cost, and with how much mana we do have unreserved, it's quite, it can be a bit expensive, even though we are using mods on our rings that decrease non-channeling skills total mana cost. We still need Life Tap because these things cost a bit more, especially whenever they're triggered. They have increased like mana multipliers and stuff like that. So basically, we are hitting ourselves, then cast 1 damage taken procs, we're getting Molten Shell, and we're proccing Warlord's Mark on everyone around us, which again increases stun duration, gives us a bunch of different good stuff, generates us rage, and so on. Then we're using Val Ancestral Warchief with multiple totems so that we can exceed 1 totem cap with it. Val version gives us additional, so it's not even in here, so whenever you were to use Val version, your DPS will even ramp up more, but basically it's just more buffs. Leap Slam is your main travel ability, and here we use Hatred, Determination, and Herald of Ice. So these are our proper mana reservation abilities. Whenever you can't really get enough mana reservation efficiency, or you're struggling with mana, you can just turn off your Herald of Ice. It gives us a bit of cold damage, and it explodes enemies, which is very, very nice, and it helps us with clear. If you do have enough damage but you don't have enough some AoE, then maybe Herald of Ice you can use instead of Hatred. But basically, you shouldn't have any problems squeezing all these 3. You don't need Enlightens, you don't need stuff like that. Hatred gives you damage, Determination gives you armor, Blood Rage gives you increased attack speed and Frenzy Charge generation. Now when it comes to our items, so Frost Breath, as I've already talked about, it's a GG weapon for this build. It's quite easy to find, and it is very powerful. It gives us everything that we need. Before that, you may use some high attack speed. Probably highest attack speed is the most powerful thing that you can find outside of Frost Breath, and just regular high like physical DPS or overall DPS on the item whenever you can't get Frost Breath. Then as our shield, we're using Dawnbreaker. Which gives us a bunch of block, it gives us a bunch of armor, some percentage of damage is taken as fire damage, and scorches enemies, which is very, very good for our damage. Heat Shiver is more of a medium budget item. You can use regular helmet, but it gives us damage whenever we chill enemies and freeze enemies, and otherwise it just gives us resistances. But it's very, very good on the builds that utilize cold damage and chills and freezes and stuff like that. Then body armor full armor incentivization, some resistances, fizz damage reduction, and fizz damage hits taken from hits as some other stuff. As you can see here, there's no life here just because we're taking talent that increases maximum life if there are no life modifiers on your equipped body armor. So you can save yourself one modifier on your body armor, which is pretty impactful, and still get pretty good number of maximum life increase from talent 3 with 1 talent only. Then Tanuahi, it generates us adrenaline and onslaught whenever we feel unreserved life. So basically you get hit, and you constantly get hit because we are using a trauma support. Then you life leech yourself to the cap, and you have adrenaline with onslaught, which is more than nice. With boots, we're using here combined hybrid base just for us to get chance to suppress spell damage only on both armor and evasion rating. These are possible, or on evasion rating, but evasion rating itself is useless and it's harder for us. So basically, yeah, hybrid armor and evasion rating is the base for us here to go. Damage penetration penetrates 10% of enemy elemental resistances if you haven't killed recently. It's a very good enchant for you to apply it against pinnacle bosses, but it's not required by any means. Otherwise, resistances, movement speed, and maximum life. Amulet, Yoke of Suffering. We are reallocating Invitorate here. It gives a bit of attributes, resistances, and your elemental damage can shock, which means that any elemental damage can shock, and enemies take 5% increased damage for each type of ailment you have inflicted on them. And you will inflict chill, shock, and sometimes freeze, depends on the situation. Maybe even a bit of ignite if like stars align, but it's not the thing that you're relying upon. So yeah, basically this is pretty good in terms of damage, and yeah, shocking, quite useful. Then for our rings, the mods that you definitely need to have is non-channeling skills have -7 to total mana cost. You may have more, but it's a very good thing for you to get your Glacial Hammer down to 0 and your most other skills like Leap Slam down to 0 as well, so that you can spam them and not use any mana. Don't think about mana anymore. Otherwise, we do have a bunch of flat accuracy, percentage accuracy here, but flat accuracy is preferred, resistances, and maximum life. Yeah, that's mostly it. When it comes to the belt, we're using Siegen-wise. Any other base will be okay as well. Maximum life, resistances, and some elemental damage with attack speed. So yeah, increases to elemental damage are very valuable for us because we have pretty high flat amounts of damage. We have this doubling of our damage. We have enough of more multipliers, and increases are pretty valuable. Then yeah, this jewel that gives some life, armor, accuracy. Accuracy is very important here. Phasing, chance to phase on kill will help you when you're traversing the maps, but we do have quartz flask, so it's not that important either. Now, for when it comes to our flasks, it's quartz flask for additional suppress, chance, and phasing, which is pretty useful. Taste of Hate gives us a bunch of fizz damage as extra cold, which is nice, and some fizz damage from hits taken as cold damage, which we negate even more with how our ascendancy work. It gives us a bunch of less cold damage taken as well, which is good. Granite Flask gives us armor, Quicksilver gives us movement speed, and here we have increased attack speed and armor as modifiers on them, and Divine Life Flask for you to get rid of corrupted blood and bleeding. If you have jewel with corrupted blood immunity, then only bleeding, because yeah, bleeding still sucks. Yeah, and that's mostly it. So regular jewels are just with attack speed and damage with one-handed or maces, stuff like that. Cluster Jewel we've already saw, Watcher's Eye we've already saw. So this is your, if you don't really like Bone Shatter, which is broken by obvious reasons, and you want to play, or you wanted to play Glacial Hammer for the longest time, or you just like to freeze everything and you like to play melee, this build is definitely it's an easy goer. You have all the right things, all the defenses and offensive stats in place, and it's quite easy. It's Juggernaut and it's cheap. So yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you're having a good time. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and goodbye.